sweet, my sword, my shield. Thank you for watching. Home is behind, the world ahead, and there are many paths to tread, through shadow to the edge of night, until the stars are all alight. Mist and shadow, cloud and shade, all shall fade, all shall fade. When the cold of winter comes, starless night will cover day. In the veiling of the sun, we will walk in bitter rain. But in dream, I can hear your name. And in dreams, we will meet when the seas and mountains fall, and we come to end of days. In the dark I hear a call, calling me there. I will go there and back again. Thank you very much for watching. I can't believe I just got through that. I kept messing up. Thank you guys for watching.
All right, welcome everybody. I just want to do an audio check. I think the music's still playing. Nope. All right, let's see. Is it too loud this time? All right, last time it was too low, so I think I fixed it. Bagels, yummy. All right, so today I wanted to do, like, I guess just a whole overview of, you know, Christian monotheism, because everyone's claiming to be a monotheist. The Jews claim to be monotheists, the Muslims claim to be monotheists, Christians claim to be monotheists, and I don't think we understand what that means. Like, what does it mean to be a monotheist, and how is the present Bible interpretation today a monotheistic religion, right? So we have monotheism, which means one God and one God only. That's it, right? And then you have polytheism, which they believe in multiple gods, like you can go to Rome or Greece or Egypt, and every city would have their own god. It's kind of like India today. You know, to say I'm a Hindu, it doesn't mean anything. Like, there's no such thing as like Hinduism in the sense of one religion. India's like a world within a world, and depending on what village you're in or what part of India you're in, they're going to have their own religion, their own gods. It's going to change from region to region. So to say I'm a Hindu, well, it's a broad term, right? It's also kind of like saying I'm a Muslim or I'm a Christian. You know, Catholics don't believe what Protestants believe in, and Orthodox don't believe. Like, we all have our own little, you know, sects, right? So I'm a Christian monotheist, and that means I just believe in one God. My God's not battling another God. My God doesn't need to do that, and it's just him alone, right? So that's going to bring us to the verse of the week, and well, quote of the week is also in a verse of the week. All right, so in Deuteronomy 32:39 we have, "See now that I, even I, am he, and there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand." Okay, and then in Isaiah 45:5-7, "I am the Lord, there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me, that they may know from the rising of the sun and from the west that there is none beside me. I am the Lord, there is none else. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things." So this is the God that I worship. He has no equals, he has no rivals. It's only him and man. Okay? I don't believe in Lucifer. I don't think we understand the concept of Satan. My God doesn't need to duel another God, right? So the moment you add another God, you've left monotheism and you've entered either polytheism or henotheism. Okay, so what henotheism is, it would be like Zoroastrianism. It would be like you believe in a superior God, but then there are lesser gods under him, right? And I'm not this either, right? So Christian monotheism. Okay, so my view is our real enemy isn't necessarily bagels. It's Gnostics, okay? And the thing is, the supreme Gnostic sect are Kabbalistic bagels. So Freemasonry is Gnosticism, but their whole belief is based on the Kabbalah. Okay, and very specifically, if you know the different sects of bagels, sorry, if you hear chewing in the back, it's the dog. I rescued a dog, and I now have 2 dogs, so this new dog is chewing. So, if you know the sects of Jews, so there's different branches of bagels, and you know, you can have reformed bagels, which are kind of at the bottom. They're very lukewarm bagels. Then you can have conservative synagogues. They're slightly more strict, and then you'll have Orthodox bagels, and they're considered the Pharisees, okay? But then you have a very specific branch of Orthodox Judaism, and they're called the Chabad Lubavitch. And what they are is they're a branch of Orthodox Judaism that wanted to bring the Kabbalah, Jewish Gnosticism to the world. Okay? And that's what Freemasonry is based on, and it's what I would say modern day Christianity is based on as well. So their goal was to transform the world into Gnostic Kabbalistic teachings, okay? So we have to understand, and these are the bagels that control Russia. They control the White House. I mean, the Americans, I think it was under George Bush, made a declaration that the United States of America was founded on Talmudic, not like Kabbalistic principles. Okay? That's not a joke. And these are the guys that want to bring in Noahidism, right? Which is just absolute insanity. So I would say that, look, the majority of mankind is generally under a state of delusion, and then you're going to get like small pockets in history where mankind kind of breaks out of it for a while, but then the elites put the people back to sleep. And this is the first time in like world history where we can compare the manuscripts. Like even just the normal man, like me, a guy like me can sit down with all the manuscripts, go verse by verse by verse, see where there's differences. Okay, this man, the Jewish Masoretic says this, the Septuagint says this, and older versions of the Septuagint say that. What's the answer? Okay, you couldn't do this before. Like when people were translating the Bibles, they could only translate based upon what manuscripts they had in those regions. It's not like today where we can take manuscripts from around the world, put them all together, and we can all read and write. It's a whole different world today. So I do believe that now that we live in a time where we can compare so many different manuscripts, and that we're not reliant on our priests. We're not stupid. We can read and write and figure this stuff out ourselves. Plus all the computer software, the research I can do in 2 minutes with my computer would take an entire monastery of monks a year to do what I can do in 2 minutes. So this is like an unprecedented time for us to re-examine the scriptures and go, what the heck's going on, right? So does that make sense to you guys? So I would say like Freemasons for sure, Gnostics, Islam to me is like the purest Gnostic sect. That's not like they all branch from, I would say, Jewish mysticism, and I would say that Islam is the purest created religion that is Gnostic. So let's keep going. So what is monotheism? Just to state my views and stuff, and I'm willing to debate any of these topics, right? So one God and no other. There's no one else. My God doesn't need to battle another God over the souls of mankind. That's insanity for me. Then the Roman god Lucifer is not real. So you kind of go together here. Now understand that Lucifer is a Roman god based off the Greek god Phosphorus, and he wasn't a bad god. If you go to Roman and Greek mythology, he's just the normal god. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Right, so understand that somehow this Greco-Roman god became the star villain in the Christian Bible, right? So we're not supposed to have anything to do with pagan gods, but yet here we are. I believe in the old earth creation. I believe that, and we'll talk about this too a little bit later, that, and I follow the Septuagint timeline, the Greek Bible, the Greek manuscript timeline. So I just believe that the Bible tells us when Adam came into existence. It doesn't record the time before that. So we have no idea how old the earth really is, right? It just tells us when Adam was placed, and then it counts down from Adam. Okay? So Adam and Eve are also not the first people. I hold the view of the Adamic race, not fallen angels mixing with mankind. This is right out of the Talmud. This is Gnosticism. This is the stuff I'm trying to remove from the Bible, right? Anything Gnostic or Talmudic. Oh, this dog chewing is going to drive me crazy. The Jews are not Israel, right? So to separate the northern tribes from Judah and how the northern tribes were given the blessing. I mean, it's right there in the name Abraham. Abraham means the father of many nations. Israel was promised to become many nations. And the Bagels never became many nations. They fail to meet the most basic criteria of who are the chosen people. Do you know what I mean? Abraham, father of many nations. Israel, you shall become many nations. You'll scatter around the world. Kings will come out of you. Peoples and nations. Where the Bagels go, they stay Bagels. They don't change. They don't fulfill the most basic promise in the Old Testament that was given to Joseph and his children, the northern tribes of Israel, which the people you guys watching are probably the true Israelites, not the Bagels, okay? The world is not ending, so I'm going to go over this again probably in the next couple live streams. We're going to redo the Book of Revelation streams, and we oppose Gnosticism. That's my goal. My goal is to oppose the Kabbalistic, Talmudic, and Gnostic teachings, and to re-examine the Bible to see, did they insert their nonsense in there, right? So we're going to talk about what is Gnosticism, okay? And I've talked about this before. I've got some videos on this stuff, but it's never a bad thing to reiterate some of the stuff that we're talking about. All right, so if you don't know what Gnosticism is, I think this is very fascinating. I think you'll learn a lot here, and it'll give you an insight of... And remember, World War II was very specifically a war against Freemasons, okay? Communists, which communism was a Freemason takeover, a Bagel Freemason takeover. Even though the Soviet Union was apparently anti-Freemason, one of the first things the Bolsheviks did, the communists did, is they built a Freemason monument in the Soviet Union to honor the Decembrist revolutionaries, Masons from 1825, who failed to take the Soviet Union. They tried to have a liberal revolution in Russia in 1825 that failed, and the first thing the Bolsheviks did after they destroyed Russia, blew up all the churches, killed 31 million Christians, was they built a Freemason monument to honor the Freemasons who first failed. Alright, so World War II, in my opinion, was very much a battle against Gnosticism. Even though I do consider the Catholic Church, in a sense, in doctrine, a Gnostic sect. I consider the Orthodox Church too a Gnostic sect. They are well, that is what it is. You'll see when I go through. So we're going to look at the Jewish Encyclopedia from 1948. And we're just going to define what we're talking about. We're going to be a good lawyer and make sure we define what we're talking about. So Gnosticism. A system of belief in antiquity which held that the words of the Bible contained a special meaning which was the real one, which the literal meaning represented a lower degree of understanding. So right away we're getting some hints at Freemasonry where that you can't accept layer one. You need to know the secret meanings behind the words. And I do believe, on one hand, this is nonsense. On the other hand, it actually is true, because I think they changed the Bible, and we're going to see the changes that they made. And that if you do believe layer one, because they're tricking you into believing in Gnosticism, then you're kind of an idiot. You have to know what it really says to be enlightened, right? And Bill Cooper said that when you get to the highest degree of Freemasonry, what they tell you is, because it's based on layers and systems and levels and how smart you are and all this nonsense. So once you climb the ladder of nonsense in Freemasonry, you get to the top, you're told there is no such thing as Lucifer. you are the true God, that all this stuff is nonsense. They've built a ladder of nonsense, and only the people smart enough to see that it's nonsense are the ones who rise to the top. Okay, so there's a hidden meaning inside the Bible, okay? It maintained that the higher meaning is known to the initiated only, and that the knowledge of it raises him who possesses it above the masses who are content with the usual meaning of the words. Those who based their teachings on such an esoteric meaning of the scriptures were called Gnostics. They were found among the adherents of both Judaism and Christianity. Okay, it is Philo. Okay, Philo of Alexandria. He was a very prominent Jew, Gnostic, Greek-speaking Jew obviously from Egypt, Alexandria, just before the time of Jesus. Okay, and he's really the father of modern-day Gnosticism, where. Okay, so I'll just read, I'll explain in a second, okay? It is Philo who first reveals the traces of such a belief in a hidden meaning to the Torah in the form of a conscious and deliberate system, but the origin of the tendency go further back. So now that you have this bagel, Philo, living in Greek Egypt, and he's now going to incorporate these tendencies, this idea, this Gnostic belief, but he's now going to incorporate it with the Torah, with the Bible, okay? The teachings of Gnosticism affected a fusion of Jewish and Christian ideas with a number of current pagan conceptions. Later on, the movement split into a number of different groups. The motive at the basis of the Gnostic movement was the desire to explain away the difficulty produced by the fact that God, who is good, is said to be the creator and ruler of a world in which there is so much that is imperfect and evil. The Gnostics attempt to solve this difficulty by supposing that there were two persons in the divinity, the highest God and the demiurge, or the creator of the world. So they're not happy that the world's all messed up, even though the God of the Bible admits he created everything crooked. You know, who can make straight what God has made crooked? You know, we are born sinful. We are born imperfect. And it's through this imperfection that we can come to learn and know, you know, what perfection is, right? So looking at all of us who are sinful, here comes Jesus, who is perfection, dies for our sins. You know, death has no claim over him because he'd never sinned. So they reject this idea that God created evil, that God allows bad, even though verse of the week, verse of the day clearly says that God did. Okay? So they separate God into two, and they create this God of the world. Okay? All right, so according to their doctrine, the highest God is enthroned above the world in infinite sublimity and has nothing at all to do with it. So their God is above and beyond and doesn't really care about the world. If you know Lord of the Rings and the religion in Lord of the Rings, it's the exact same thing. The God's name is Elu Iluvatar, and he has very little to do with Arda, with the world he's created, okay? And he's left it to his lesser gods, the Maiar, the Valar, and all this stuff. Like, if you know Lord of the Rings, we were talking about it earlier today. I actually got C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien's mixed up this morning. And anyways, Gandalf, if you know Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is an angel. He's a Maiar. He's an angel that was sent to Earth to help mankind fight a fallen angel named Sauron, who was also a Maiar. So in the story of Lord of the Rings, Gandalf isn't a wizard. The reason he's a wizard, he's like, that's his disguise, but he's an angel. That's what Gandalf the Grey is. That's what all those wizards are. They're actually angels. You know, so it's a very Gnostic story. So Their God is enthroned above the world and doesn't care about our world. And from him emanates a number of radiations which are represented either as independent beings or else perceived as revelations of the essence of the highest God in such a manner that the danger of their being made independent was great. The creator of the world proceeded from the highest God. Okay, this in Lord of the Rings, his name is Melkor or Morgoth. Okay, so he couldn't really create, he could only manipulate what Iluvatar had already made. So if you remember in Lord of the Rings, when they're running through the mines of Moria, and then they come into that giant monster, that giant, they called it if you paid attention, Gandalf calls it a Balrog of Morgoth. Okay, Morgoth is Melkor. They're the same. It's kind of like how when Lucifer fell, he became Satan. Well, when Melkor fell, he became Morgoth. And that monster that Gandalf is fighting is also a fallen angel, just like Gandalf. That's why Gandalf was scared to go against him, because it was his equal. Okay? And so hidden in Lord of the Rings is this Gnostic story. And they don't tell you that in the movie. In the movie, they don't even talk about Morgoth or Melkor. You have no idea that Sauron isn't the real bad guy. He's the secondary bad guy. Melkor Morgoth, who is the Lucifer, is actually the bad guy. So Lord of the Rings is a pure Gnostic story. It's a great story, but it's based off Gnosticism, okay? So the creator of the world proceeded from this highest God. It was he who created the world, who chose Israel and as their redeemer, and who promulgated the law. He created the world by giving form and shape to the primeval matter which had always existed. Accordingly, everything good is an emanation of the highest God, the good God, a God of all good, can't do anything wrong. Okay? Everything defective and evil owes its origin to the primitive matter, and the law, the Torah, is the emanation of the exalted God, okay? As appears to those who understand the words of the Torah literally, but proceeds from the less exalted being, the creator of the world, and therefore not the expression of the highest perfection. So to the Gnostics, the God of the Bible is the true enemy. He is the God of the material world. He is not the God who created everything, that everything emanated from, the God who doesn't care about the world so much. Right? And they're at war with the God of the world, the demiurge, or in Christianity, it would be Lucifer. Lucifer is called the God of this world. So right away, we could see that modern day Christianity is no different than what the Gnostics believe in. They believe in a God of all good, God of all evil. They're kind of dueling it out. And you don't want to follow the God of the material world, Lucifer. You want to follow this God of all good, which isn't monotheism. Monotheism is, no, there's just one God and that's it. Like, what are you guys talking about, right? So we have to figure out who is Satan, who is Lucifer, what's going on. Sorry, my dogs are chewing. Sorry, I hope it's not bothering you guys. Okay, so that's Gnosticism. All right. Now, let's take a look at the Matrix for a second. Now, here's an example of layers in art. Okay, so when you watch The Matrix, you might not catch it, but any Gnostic who watches The Matrix and understands the Freemason Kabbalistic religion, they're going to see their religion in The Matrix. They understand full well what this story is about. Who's the good guy, right? You've got Neo, a guy who's been awoken, who's now been given knowledge and all this stuff. And he's been freed from the Matrix, right? And brought into what is like the real world. He's kind of left the cave, like if you were to look at Plato's allegory of the cave, you know. So he's escaped, he's been freed, and he's been shown Zion, right? Zion. Zion is the name of their city where they act like a bunch of degenerates, and they got to defend Zion because the guy who created the Matrix, the creator God, the imperfect God, is out to destroy them. Lucifer, or the demiurge, the god of the materialistic world. So the Matrix is a pure Gnostic story, and it has Gnostic terms like the Trinity, the ship is called the Nebuchadnezzar, the city is called Zion. And when you're watching this movie and you understand that Neo's out to destroy the creator God, the guy who built the Matrix, who's enslaved everyone, that is how they view the God of the Bible. There is no difference between the architect, this guy, and Neo's like the new one, he's like the new Messiah, and they got to destroy the demiurge, the creator of the world, the Matrix, who's out to destroy Zion. Who destroyed the bagels in 70 AD? God. So, does that make sense to you guys? Does that make any sense? Alright, so let's go back. Alright, so in Gnosticism, let's draw another picture. You're going to have the highest God, okay? Let me see here. Alright, so you're going to have the highest God, and then underneath him you're going to have something called Shekinah, Sophia. It's the glory of God, which is personified as wisdom, knowledge, that this higher God will give to you, okay? And again, they're at war with the God of the Torah, Yehovah, or in Christianity we would call him, Satan, Lucifer, whatever, the devil. But understand that it's really, they've kind of tricked us, right? We believe in their religion without knowing it. We just believe in a different form of it. They just changed the names of it. Okay, so when you look at something like the Sistine Chapel, this is another thing like watching The Matrix. When you're looking at this painting, obviously this isn't God. It's a stupid idea to think God is some old man with a beard, right? But what you notice is Shekinah, the glory of God, the female aspect of their God, is in this painting. That's whose God's arm is wrapped around this woman. This is the glory of God, Shekinah, Sophia. And this God, because remember, in Gnosticism, they view the serpent, and this is just kind of, their interpretation of the Garden of Eden, where they believe that Adam was a prisoner, that the demiurge, the creator God, Jehovah, had Adam as a prisoner, and then the glory of God, the one true God, is the one who helped free him by bestowing knowledge, Sophia, upon Gnosticism, Gnosis, upon Adam. And that's why if you look close at the painting, they are floating around in a brain. This is the shape of a human brain, right? Knowledge and wisdom. Here's the glory of the female aspect of their God, and he's kind of bestowing the knowledge upon Adam to free him from the creator God. Okay, so the people who painted this has nothing to do with Christianity. Any true Gnostic can look at this painting and go, I see it, right? So The Matrix is no different. If you watch The Matrix with a Gnostic mind, you can see right through it. This is a Gnostic story. This is a Gnostic painting. Does that make sense to you guys? All right. So now I mentioned it earlier, Chabad Lubavitch. What makes them so unique is there was kind of like a civil war in Judaism back in the 1600s, or maybe even the 1500s, and then it kind of went on. And what the war was about was Kabbalah was secret. And then the Chabad Lubavitch movement broke out and became like the supreme sect of bagels. And what makes them so unique is their goal is to transform the world and share Kabbalah, the Kabbalah, Gnosticism, Jewish Gnosticism, with the world. And these are the leading bagels when it comes to religion, okay? And we now know what the Gnostics really believe. We now know what lies at the root of Kabbalah. They reject the God of the Torah. They view him as the enemy. And they believe there is a higher God above. And that's the true God that they worship. Okay? So the Orthodox Jewish movement created to share Kabbalah or Gnosticism with the world. The Talmudic Jews never use the name of God. They don't use his name. They don't use his name. Jehovah is called Hashem, which means the name, or Adonai, which means Lord. So even when the Jews are reading the Torah, and clearly it's going to say Yehovah, they remove that name, and they'll insert either two yuds, and they'll just say the name Adonai. They'll remove his name completely. Okay? So, we have no idea which God the Jews are praying to. And when you understand that Jehovah is the enemy God, and they don't say that God's name, they remove it and replace it with the name, or Adonai, Lord. Okay? You know, also, the King James Bible removes the name of God every time it can. There's a few, maybe 3 or 4 verses where they do have Jehovah written, but for the most part, they remove the name Jehovah 99% of the time and replace it like a good Gnostic with the word Lord, right? I have my trusted Freemason Bible here, and of course it's a King James Bible, and I think I was supposed to return it to the lodge. It belonged to some guy, I don't know, this guy. I got this at a library book sale along with my Jewish encyclopedia. I think I paid $1 for it. Anyways, so is this making sense to you guys that perhaps the bagels in power don't believe in the God of the Bible? That they're Gnostics? Like, that's what Chabad Lubavitch is. They're Gnostics. You can Google that, okay? Kabbalah, Gnostics, Chabad Lubavitch. Right on their website, they'll tell you, yes, that's what we are. We're a sect of bagels trying to bring Gnosticism to the world. Okay? The King James Bible, to me, is the most Gnostic translation of the Bible possible, okay, in the modern world. I would rather read the Latin Vulgate than the King James Bible at this point, okay? So, the origin of Lucifer, and I just want Christians to know that the Greco-Roman god Luciferus or Phosphorus, that's who has become the enemy of the God of the Bible. Somehow this Greco-Roman pagan god has been inserted into our monotheistic faith, which is, Christians aren't monotheists, Muslims aren't monotheists. As far as I know, I'm the only monotheist in the world, me and my little brother. I don't know too many of us. I think there's one pastor that I know that actually believes in, the Bible like I do, but I mean, true monotheism doesn't really exist in the world. Every version of Christianity or Islam, they all have fallen angels and the god Lucifer and Iblis and whatever. Even Judaism, it's just, I just believe in one God. I don't deny that their God might have heavenly beings or something, but they're not, he has no one fighting against him, right? So let's go over this. Lucifer is the bringer of dawn and is associated with the planet Venus. Okay, that's it. That's it. He is the fabled son of Aurora and Cephalus. Okay, I think Cephalus would be the son of Hermes. Shoot. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the son of Hermes. So Hermes, again, Greek god of trade, and like, this is the origins of Lucifer, okay? And then what happens is Lucifer is incorporated as the Talmudic fallen angel named Azazel. So in the Talmud, through the Gnostic Talmudic bagels, through the religion of the bagels who killed Christ, is where we get our first picture of fallen angels rebelling against God, impregnating women. It's the Talmud. So anyone who believes in the sons of God mixing with the daughters of man and creating demons and giants and all this stuff, that's Talmudic. That's Gnostic Talmudic Judaism. And then 400 years later, the church fathers insert Lucifer, who's not a bad god. He's the bringer of dawn. That's it. In Greek, he's Phosphorus. In Latin, he's Lucifer. He has nothing to do with us. I mean, what we've done to this poor pagan god, Lucifer, is almost as bad as what the bagels have done to Uncle. They've created this whole villain story. He's the evilest man who ever lived. He's the evilest god who ever lived, this Lucifer. And he's just the bringer of dawn. That's it. If you go to ancient Greece, you go to ancient Rome, that's all Lucifer. That's who he was. And then he's incorporated to fulfill the role of the Talmudic fallen angel Azazel. Lucifer is the victim. That's right, Tarnished. He's been framed just like Uncle. That's it. Sorry, that's the reality of the situation, okay? So the question is, how did a Greco-Roman god become the villain in the Bible? All right? Sorry, I got to drink coffee, guys. All right. Lucifer Gap Theory. So when we go to... Oh, this is embarrassing. All right. So when I was going to Christian churches, and you could find a lot... This is huge in Protestantism. I don't think it exists in Catholicism too much. It very well could have its origins in Catholicism. I think it's a Protestant thing, though. I wouldn't blame the Catholics. This is called the Lucifer Gap Theory, okay? And I've heard Christian pastors say, it's the gap fact. You know, I went to my Bible, Pensacola, Florida Baptist Southern Church. I went to PBI, got my PhD. Oh, man. And they go, this is the gap fact. And what the gap fact is, well, Lucifer must have betrayed God and fought God and brought a third of the angels down with him somewhere between verse 1 and 2. I mean, the Bible doesn't say any of this. Moses never recorded any of this stuff. Satan doesn't even appear in this story. There's no Lucifer. The word angel's not even here. So what they say is that inside here is where we have to insert all of this. The Greco-Roman god Lucifer was the most beautiful of God's creation. He rebelled against God and took 1/3 of the angels with him. He then became known as Satan. The fallen angels then impregnated earthly women and began to plan to destroy God, who they know they cannot defeat. That's it. So they open up these 2 verses. They cram this whole story right in there. Even though Moses said, "What things so I command you, observe to do it, thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it." Don't add and don't take away from what I wrote. Forget you, Moses. We don't care what you say. We're just going to rip open here and shove an entire story. Because that's the only way we're going to be able to make our interpretation of the scriptures make any sense. Okay? So this is called the Gap Fact, not the Gap Theory to some Southern Baptist boys. But I'm not going to do this. I'm going to read the Bible as it is and try to figure out, okay, what's going on in this story. I'm not going to open up 2 verses and then insert a whole galactic battle, Lord of the Rings, Melkor, Morgoth versus the Valnar and the Maiar, and go into this whole Gnostic, Azazel, Talmudic, Pharisaic folklore, people. Think about that. This is the religion of the Pharisees, the synagogue of Satan. Okay, so the Greco-Roman god Lucifer, Phosphorus. So if we go to this is the only time he's going to show up in the Bible. And which Bible does he show up in? He shows up in this one, the Freemason Bible, the King James Bible. This is where Lucifer makes his star appearance, okay? And what do we notice here? So Isaiah 14. Who's Isaiah 14 written to? It's right at the beginning, verse 4. Thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Bagels. No, the king of the world, fallen angel. No, it's just the king of Babylon. King of Babylon. And say, how has the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased? This is going to be predicting the fall and destruction of Babylon. And then later on, when you get to verse 12, it's going to say, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? Alright, this is the only time the word Lucifer appears in the entire Bible. And very specifically, our Freemason, Gnostic, Kabbalistic Bible. Doesn't appear in almost any other translations. They're going to translate it properly, like we see in Greek. Here we have the Greek Bible, and here we're going to have the word. It's pretty much phosphorus. You could see phosphorus is in there. And then we're going to go to the Latin Bible. So remember, our Bible came from Hebrew. This is Old Testament, right? So it started in Hebrew, but the oldest version of the Old Testament we have is Greek, and then from Greek, Latin would be the next big one, and then English, all right? And here we have it in Latin, and what do we notice about the translation? It's correct. And now notice the lowercase l. See, Lucifer and phosphorus both mean the same thing. It means light bringer, dawn or dawn bringer, the bringer of dawn, the bringer of light. In English, we would translate it as the morning star, which is another name for Venus, who the Roman god and the Greek god Phosphorus, Latin Lucifer, they represented this dawn of the morning, the morning star, which is just a way to say a chosen person. Jesus is called the morning star at the end of Revelation. It doesn't mean he's Lucifer, the fallen dark lord Sauron. No. It's a title for a chosen person. That's all it means. All right, so now what do we notice about the King James Version? This is an English translation. My God, this is so embarrassing. We have an English translation that was apparently translated from the Hebrew Bible, and as far as I know, in the Masoretic, it's the Hebrew word Hallel, which has the equivalent of bright one, shining one, okay? And, I mean, you can go to any campus in the United States, and almost every university is going to have a Jewish youth group, and it's going to be called Hallel. It doesn't mean they're Lucifer, they're Satan, they're Azazel. It just means what it means. Chosen ones, bright ones, gifted ones. That's all it means. Okay? But look what the King James translators did. They didn't translate the word. They took that Hebrew word Hallel, ripped it out, inserted a pure Latin word, Lucifer, light bringer, shoved it in there, put a capital L on it, and go, there. That's Lucifer. We're talking about the King of Babylon. It's clearly at the top. It's King of Babylon we're addressing. No. It's clearly talking about, we just took this Hebrew translation, ripped out this Hebrew word, translated the rest into English, and just shoved this Latin word in there, left it in Latin, put a capital L, and voila. We have our Roman Greco God now inserted into the Bible. And no one has a problem with that. No one's like, if anything, Christians have a problem with me that you don't believe in the Dark Lord Lucifer, you don't believe in this pagan god, how dare you call yourself a Christian and deny the Greco-Roman god Lucifer as the arch-villain? How dare you reject the teachings of the Pharisees? That's what Christians will say to me. That's what Muslims will say to me. So I'm actually dependent on atheists right now to watch my videos, go through my research, because Christians they've just taken way too much Kool-Aid. I need people with a clean mind to go over what I'm saying, go over my work, examine what I'm saying. You're going to see. I believe only you guys can see. You guys were smart enough to walk away from the nonsense taught in the churches. I believe you're the only people that are going to be very few Christians are going to be able to break through this and accept the fact that they've been completely duped by these Kabbalistic Jews and Freemasons, okay? So, okay, does that make sense to you guys? Is that not a little bit weird how we've got this word, Lucifer, pure Latin word based off the Greco-Roman god, and all it means is, again, bright one, morning star, or whatever. Okay, so we're going to look at some biblical definitions, okay? And we're going to look at this word Satan, and we're going to look at this word angel. So we've got a Greek word, and we've got a Hebrew word. And all Satan means is an opponent, okay? Someone who opposes you, someone who withstands you. It's not... Nowhere does it say the Dark Lord of the universe. That's in the Gap Theory. We got to open up verse 1 and 2, cram all this Pharisaic, Talmudic, Gnostic stuff in there, and now we've got Satan. That's okay. Christians are cool with that. You can open up those two verses and insert that whole story there. The Bible doesn't talk about it. Christians have no problem with that. They expect that, but when you say, no, the Bible doesn't say that, and let's translate these words properly, they have a problem with that. Christians don't like that. So, let's look at this one verse. This is the first and only time, he's mentioned again, only twice does the word Satan show up in the books of Moses, but in the same chapter, okay? And it's actually not, it's translated two different ways. In Hebrew, when you're reading it in Hebrew, you will see the word Satan. It's there in Hebrew. It's not there in English. The word Satan doesn't show up a single time in the book of Moses. The whole Torah, in the English translation, not one time. Not one time does Satan show up. And that's damning. And I'm gonna explain to you. I think it's in the next clip. I'm going to explain to you, or in the next couple clips, I'm going to explain to you why this is so damning that Moses didn't write this. Okay, so so the first time Satan appears, again, not in English, you'd have to look at it and read it in Hebrew, and then Satan shows up, and it says, and God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel, that's a Greek word, I'm reading an English translation from a Hebrew Bible, but there's a Greek word inserted. This Greek word that was transliterated from Greek into English is now being brought back into the Hebrew Bible. Oh my God, this is a mess. Okay, and God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel, the messenger of Yehovah, you see it says Lord, the Lord in all capitals, is where the King James translators didn't want to write the word Yehovah because Gnostics don't like that name, just like how Bagels won't say Yehovah, they'll say Adonai, which is the equivalent of Lord, or they will say Hashem because they don't want to say his name. Because that's not the God they're worshiping. They're worshiping the other God, the higher God, the unknowable God. They're at war with our God. Okay, now do you think like 200-300 years ago when all these Mason lodges were going up and people actually knew this, do you think the Christians would have let people build Masonic lodges everywhere? Or do you think we would have weren't, these guys are our enemies, we need to burn down their churches and hang them all as traitors? It's probably what would have happened, but they didn't know. They had no idea that these Gnostics, these Kabbalists, these Orthodox Talmudic Jews are the enemies of the God of the Bible. That's what a Gnostic is, okay? So, again, so God's anger was kindled because he went, and the messenger of Yehovah stood in the way as a Satan, as an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his two servants were with him. So, the angel of the Lord in this story, who was sent to do God's will and fight and defend God and punish disobedient men, Satan is a agent of God, serving God loyally, doing what God wants. That is the first and only time Satan appears in the books of Moses. So we have our foundation, the books of Moses, the Torah. And the first and only time Satan appears only in the Hebrew Bible, because in English they translated the word correctly. That's what Satan means, an adversary, an opponent, someone who withstands you, someone who's going to fight you. And so the first and only time Satan appears, he's a guy fighting for God, as if he's God's servant and agent and loyal to God. What is that? Does that not strike you as odd that all you have is this gap theory that we got to cram this story, the Lord of the Rings story, into? But if we actually read the Bible in Hebrew, look at these words properly, translate the words properly, please, we have a problem, because Satan's obviously serving God according to Moses. All right. Now, I just want to point this out, because the next point I want to draw is, let's look at the time difference of Adam to Moses and Moses to Jesus and Jesus to us today. And I'm just putting this up. So as you can see, this is the Greek Septuagint. And because the Bagels have completely changed the Bible, the Masoretic Jewish Bible has got to be the worst Bible manuscript in history, okay? I mean, there's some stuff in it that it's very handy. Don't get me wrong. I'm the kind of guy that believes we have to put all the manuscripts together and examine them all verse by verse, check the style, check the words, check absolutely everything in each and every verse. I don't care if it's a Vulgate, I don't care what century it's from, it all needs to be mapped out, as every manuscript we have. But my point is, what you're going to notice is, so here's the Jewish Masoretic. As you can see, look at how weird the Bagels changed and removed all the years off the people in their Jewish Bible. And the reason they did that was because in the Talmud, oh my God, this is embarrassing. So in the Talmud, they have a lot of BS stories, just stories that are just total nonsense. Like Abraham had to battle Nimrod, and Nimrod tried to kill Abraham and put him in a furnace, and there was a star, and Nimrod saw that a baby was born. It's like they just ripped off the story of Jesus, kind of. And then Abraham had to go hide with Shem, and Noah raised Abraham. If you go to the Chabad.org and read the story of Abraham, right from the Kabbalists, they'll start telling you that Abraham was taught by Noah, because if you see on the list, I drew a black line here, and that black line shows you that Abraham lived at the same time as all these people. But when you go to the Septuagint Bible, that black line is here, and Noah was dead 600 years before. He never lived to know Shem or any of these people. They were all dead. So the Bagels had to change all the dates in the Bible to compensate for all the Talmudic, Pharisaic, Kabbalistic, Gnostic folklore that they invented. Otherwise, you look at the Bible lineages and go, well, obviously Abraham couldn't have known any of these people. He didn't live at the time of Nimrod, and there's no way Esau killed Nimrod. I mean, their whole story falls apart just by using the older Greek Bibles, and all their Talmudic, Pharisaic folklore completely falls apart if you just switch to the Greek Septuagint, okay? So the reason I'm bringing this up is because all of history is now rewritten depending on which manuscript you use. Okay, so I completely reject the Jewish Masoretic. It's insanity. It's just, all of history is out of whack. Nothing makes sense. The pyramids were built before the flood, not after the flood. The Exodus isn't happening at the right time. Nothing, all of history is just a total, it's all just messed up. Okay, so the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm going to use the Septuagint dates, because I think they're correct. I think when I overlay history, everything fits into place. It's a much cleaner transition with history, and I'm not going to let the Bagels get away with changing all the ages of the people, moving history over just to compensate for their Kabbalistic, Gnostic, Jewish folklore. I'm not going to give it to them. All right, so what they're pretty much saying is that from the time of Adam to the time of Noah, the word Satan is never mentioned a single time. And so the first time Satan appears in the Bible is as a messenger of God, and he appears here during the story of Moses. There's no mention of him anywhere here. You have to open up verse 1 and 2 in Genesis 1 and cram that gap theory, gap fact that the Baptists love to preach. You got to do that if you want to get the fall of the Roman god Lucifer story, right? Which is Talmudic. It's based off the Talmudic Gnostic fallen angel Azazel. Okay, so, and now this is where it's going to get interesting, because it's when the Bible's going to go from Hebrew, a little bit of Aramaic, and then it's going to switch to Greek, Latin, and then finally English. So this is where we are. So these are just 1,000-year blocks. Okay, so Adam to Noah roughly. And Adam to Moses, and then Moses to Christ, and then Christ to us today. But between here, this is the first time the word Satan's going to appear in all of this history. Okay? Alright, Satan in the Old Testament. So let's take a look at this word Satan, right? Which just means an opponent. It's someone who withstands you. And we can go through, honest to God, I'm not kidding, we can go through the entire Bible and just take these transliterated words, and I'm going to give some examples of transliterations, and then you can and all of a sudden the story becomes totally monotheistic. It becomes very clear this is a monotheistic story, and that maybe the Gnostics weren't lying when they said that you can't trust the Bible as it's written, that you have to look deeper and there's a hidden meaning, because these psychopaths changed everything, right? So maybe they're not actually lying. So we can look at one. But now Yehovah, or the Lord, my God has given me rest on every side, so that there is neither adversary. That's the word Satan. They just translated it properly. They translated the word Satan properly here. That's how you translate the word. Good job. They did a good job. I'm very proud of them. Because you couldn't write Satan here. If they transliterated that word, which is a Hebrew word left in Hebrew, and they put Satan there, would that make sense to you? No, you'd go, what the hell? That doesn't make sense. They have to translate it here. They don't have a choice. And Yehovah, again, they don't like Yehovah, the Lord, stirred up a Satan, an adversary, unto Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was the king's seed in Edom. And he was a Satan to Israel all the days of Solomon, besides the mischief that Hadad did. And he abhorred Israel and reigned over Syria. Okay. And let's look at an opposite example. Same word. It's just here, they're not going to translate it. They're going to transliterate it, slap a capital S on it, and poof, here you've got your Dark Lord of the universe. Set thou a wicked man over him, and let Satan stand at his right side. Let's translate it. Set thou a wicked man, not a wicked fallen angel. Set thou a wicked man over him, and let an adversary, an enemy, stand at his right side. Which one makes more sense to you? Which one makes more sense to you? How about we translate that transliterated word, and now that verse makes sense. What that psalm is actually saying is put a wicked man. What's worse than when the guy you're supposed to trust the most, your right-hand man, your best friend, your Judas, that's where the dagger's coming from. It's not coming from your enemy. Oh, your enemies almost never get you. The real people who get you in life are your best friends, your closest friends. In my life, that was my experience. Guys I would have died for, guys I wouldn't have hesitated to give my life for, ended up being my biggest enemies at the end of the day. And some of my best and closest friends started off as my enemies. And I promise you, I bet you if you guys in the chat, I bet you it's the same thing with you guys. I bet you can go through your life and go, you know what, me and this guy used to hate each other. Me and this girl used to hate each other. Now we're the best of friends. And some of your closest friends became your greatest enemies, and your greatest enemies became your closest friends. So, set thou a wicked man over him, and let an enemy, an adversary, stand at his right side, is what this psalm should be saying. But hey, what now? Here we're going to put Satan, capital S, bring that Hebrew word in, leave it in Hebrew, and no problem. Dark Lord of the universe. Mazel tov. Alright. Okay. God or Satan. So this is something that comes up a lot. And we're going to answer it. We're going to answer this, okay? A lot of critics, a lot of atheists will bring up this verse. And And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. But then in Samuel, we have the same story. Chronicles is what? Chronicles is like a history summary of Israel, and Samuel is more of a detailed version of an in-depth view of the same history. So 1 Chronicles 21:1 is recording the same event from 2 Samuel 24:1. And it says, "And again, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, 'Go number Israel and Judah.'" So in one passage, Satan is the one that stood up against Israel to provoke David to number Israel. But in the other one, it's God, the Lord, Yehovah. Well, which one is it? Which one is it? Well, let's keep reading 2 Samuel 24. "And the messenger, the angel, stretched out his hand upon Jerusalem to destroy it. The Lord repented him of the evil and said to the messenger, the angel that destroyed the people, 'It is enough. Stay now thine hand.' And the messenger of Yehovah, the Satan, was by the threshing place of Arunan and the Jebusite." All right. So, was it Satan? Was it the Lord? How about the story we just read where the messenger of God was a Satan against them, sent to do what God wanted? They're the same. It's the same thing. God sent a messenger as Satan. That's what the word means. There is no seconds. That Satan isn't an entity fighting God. That's not what the word means. Not in the Old Testament. Now, when we get to the New Testament, things are going to get really complicated, because now the translators have a lot of room to make a lot of changes, because they're going from one language to another, then another language to another, and they're going to go from Hebrew to Greek and Greek to Latin, Latin to English. There's going to be a lot of room for these guys to make changes. Okay, but luckily we can see their Gnostic, sticky fingerprints everywhere. It's super fascinating for me that I know that I can go through the whole Bible and go and see, like, you can predict every change they made because you see they have an agenda. It's just crystal clear. So no, when it says Satan stood up against Israel, but it also says that the Lord stood up against Israel, and then it clarified in Samuel that God had sent a messenger to stretch out his hand against Jerusalem, and that we understand from Moses that in this story, Satan, the adversary, was an angel of the Lord, was a messenger of God. You start to go, okay, well, do we understand Satan? And anyone who brings up the book of Job, which I didn't have time, but we can go over the book of Job too. It's another great story. And what you notice in that story is Satan is again a loyal servant of God, doing everything he wants, never rebelling against God for a second. You know, God says, all right, Satan, you can do this, 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 and this, but you can't do that. And he's like, righto, God, I'll do exactly as you say. He's not a rebel. A rebel would be like, God, shove it. I've got other stuff to do. I'm not playing your game. I'm rebelling against you. I'm not... There's a partnership between the two of them. I shouldn't be reading the chat. I'm kind of like peeking at it. It's distracting me. I'll try to look at the chat closer to the end. Okay, so let's talk about it. I'm almost finished, actually. So I don't want to make this... I don't want to make it like 3 hours long. I'm going to try to keep it under 2 hours today. That's my goal. So what is a transliteration? And we're going to just use the word baptism as an example. So baptizo would be the Greek word where we get the word baptize, or, to be baptized. So understand that this word baptized didn't exist in the English language, just like the word church. Like church the word church isn't in the Greek Bible. The word, baptizo doesn't mean, like if we read the definition, it says to make whelm that is fully wet. Okay, and then they add this in the New Testament of ceremonial ablution, especially technically of the ordinance of Christian baptism, baptist, baptize, wash. Now, for me, I don't like it when people when they're defining a word, and then instead of giving it a definition, they insert the actual word. Do you know what I mean? Like to say, well, what does baptizo mean? Or what does baptism mean? Oh, it means baptize. I don't like it when the word that they're defining is in the definition, right? I'm not asking, like, it tells me that that they've added something to here that doesn't make sense. And my point here is, if you were to go to ancient Greece, go to the time of Jesus and ask someone, have you been baptized? This word doesn't have the same meaning to us today. Now the word baptize has a specific meaning of like an ordinance of Christian baptism. It's if you were to use this word, let's look at an example. Here's a Septuagint verse, okay, with the word baptizo. And here's a Syrian general who came down. Here's actually quite a beautiful story. It's a story about a Gentile, a non-Israelite from Syria, who's coming down, who believed in the God of Israel so much that he truly believed that the God of Israel could help him. I think he had leprosy. He had some kind of flesh disease. And so this Syrian general, he went down and he baptizo, he immersed himself in the Jordan 7 times according to the word of the man of God, and returned his flesh as the flesh, boy of a small, it's a literal translation, so the Greek Septuagint, the apostolic translation. So it returned his flesh to as if he was a young boy again, and he was cleansed, he was healed. Now he was baptizo, but he wasn't converting to Christianity. You could say Naaman was baptized, but it has nothing to do with Christianity in ancient Greece. If you were to ask an ancient Greek, hey, have you been baptized? They're going to be like, what? Did I take a bath today? Are you asking me, did I go swimming in the sea? What do you mean? What are you asking me if I've been baptized? Have you been baptized, man? You're not a Christian? What the hell? What does that have to do with being a Christian? Was I baptized? That's not what the word means to an ancient Greek. That's my point. My point is they're going to take this ancient Greek word, they're going to bring it into the English language, they're going to create a new word with a new meaning, a new definition in. And if you were to use this ancient Greek word to an ancient Greek back then, they would think you're absolutely crazy that this had anything to do with some kind of holy Christian ceremony. That's not what the word means to an ancient Greek, okay? And here we have two translations, both translated from the same Greek Textus Receptus, but one translator translated the Greek word literally, what it means, and they were immersed in the Jordan by him, acknowledged their sins. And then the King James, because a lot of these transliterations are going to be coming from the King James, the state government approved Bible of England, of Britain, and they were baptized, baptizo, they were immersed in the Jordan, and then they confessed their sins. Okay, so do you guys understand? Does this help you understand what a transliterated word is? They're going to take that Greek word, bring it into the English language, create a new word from it, but that newly created word, it's based off that Greek word, but it has a completely different meaning now in English. And no Greek person would understand our English view of this word, what it meant to them back then. No ancient Greek would understand us. Okay, so that should be, so when I'm trying to read the Bible, I don't really care so much about, okay, well, how do I understand this? I want to go back to the time as best as I can and try to figure out, how does an ancient Greek person hear this message? What went through his head when I said this? What's his interpretation? Not what did the translators, what happened in the last 2,000 years? It's like the word gay. In the 60s, 70s and stuff and before, the word gay just meant happy. I mean, there's people named gay. It was a name. It was a good thing. And then gay started becoming intertwined with homosexual. And then during my generation, the word gay became like an insult, a slander. Oh, dude, that's gay. Oh, you're so gay. It was a bad thing to be called gay. And now gay is like the coolest thing in the world. Like, look at all these gay people. Are you gay? It's like a style, right? It's like insane. Just how much this word has changed depending on the decade you're using this word. So it's not the same as a transliteration, but it's just another example of how a word can change just in a few decades. From this decade it means happy, from this decade it means bad, from this decade it's something really good that needs to be embraced. Oh my God. Alright, so that's an example of a transliteration. We're going to take this Greek word, insert it into the language, create a new meaning, a new definition, and it's not going to make sense in the original sense. Okay. So let's look at some examples of a transliteration. So we covered baptizo, to be immersed, baptized. The next word is Satan, opponent, which then became Satan. So again, it could be adversary, it could be an opponent. I just wrote opponent, but it could be this or it could be that. So Satan, is a transliterated word. So when we say the word Satan in the modern world, we're thinking of the Dark Lord, Lucifer, the pagan Roman Greek god who fell in that gap theory between Genesis 1 and 2, even though Satan doesn't appear until the time of Moses as an angel of the Lord. Okay, so it's now going to be transliterated. So again, if I were to use the word Satan to an ancient Israelite, they're not going to hear it the same way that I'm saying it. They're not interpreting this word to mean, as I went through all the Hebrew examples from the Old Testament, they don't hear it how we hear it today. We're in two different worlds using this word because it was brought from the Hebrew language, put into English, given a new definition and a new meaning, and they left it in Hebrew and didn't bother to translate it. And it went like that from Hebrew to Greek, Greek to English, or Greek to Latin, Latin to English. And I'll go over an example because the word devil, diabolos, diabolus, it's going to have the same game as being played here. Okay. The next word, another example, is angelos, messenger, is now going to be brought in. See, they're going to drop these Greek endings. Baptizo becomes baptize. Angelos, drop the Greek, it becomes angel. They're going to drop that ending, create a new word. Okay. Here's diabolos, slanderer. They're going to drop that Greek ending. Diavolo is going to become devil, diavolo. They're going to drop, just like an angelos, they drop the os and you get angel. Diavolos, they're going to, that B, the B is like me, like my name. My name is technically Reuven with a V, but B and V is interchangeable. Like Orthodox Jews will say Avraham, but it's Abraham too. B and V is one of these letters in Greek, and in Hebrew you can say B or V. So it could be diabolus or diabolus. It's the B and V are interchangeable. So they're going to drop that os, and you're going to get this devil. That's where the word devil comes from. This word slanderer, okay, false accuser. When you read ancient Greek literature, you'll see that this word has nothing to do with the Dark Lord Sauron. This is a very interesting one because we have the Greek word daimonian or daemon. This is where we get the word demon from, and it just means the gods. That's really all it means. It doesn't mean a demon like how we view a demon today. We view a demon as the spawn of Satan, the spawn of the Lucifer, the spawn of Azazel, the fallen angels from the Talmud. That's how we view demons today, is through this Talmudic, Gnostic, Kabbalistic lens. But to the ancient Greeks, a daimonion, a daemon, really represented the gods interacting with us on earth. Okay, so you would have a different word for the gods when they're in their abode, and then you would use this word daemon. For instance, when Socrates was on trial, they asked him if he believed in the gods, and his response in Greek was, "There's a daemon, a demon inside me." Now, to us in the modern world, that sounds insane. It's like, oh my God, Socrates just admitted that he's got a demon inside him. He's one evil. He needs an exorcism. It's like, no, that's not what it means in ancient Greek. It's just like baptizo. If you were to say, hey man, have you been baptized? Like, why? Did I take a bath? You ask me, did I go swimming? What are you asking me when you say, well, have I been baptizo? I mean, have you been baptized, man? Have you come to the Lord and been baptized? They'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? It's no different with daemon, with demon. Okay? A demon, for instance, like the reason why Jesus is healing and removing all these demons. Now think about this. My point I'm trying to draw is in the King James Gnostic, Kabbalistic, Pharisaic Bible, the word daemon wasn't even transliterated. They took this Greek word diavolos, devil, they created this word devil, they transliterated it, and then every time the word daemon appears, they now insert this word devil where daemon should be. So that we create this new word, and now we're going to this new transliterated word that we brought into the English language, we're now going to translate this Greek word daemon with this word we just created. If you don't have a problem with that, if that doesn't bother you that they transliterate this word, they didn't translate it properly. Okay, they didn't translate it properly. And now they're going to take this word that they didn't translate properly and translate a completely different Greek word to this new word that they just created. Okay, all a demon is, okay, so if I won a race, if I won the Olympics and I was like the guy, everyone would say that I had a demon. And what that would translate to the ancient Greek mind, no difference than when Socrates was on trial and they said, do you believe in the gods? And he said, yes, there is a demon inside me. It guides my intuition. It tells me right from wrong. It's that feeling that I get within me. And he said, that's what I believe the gods are. That is my demon. And what he's saying is the gods are within me and they're guiding me. It's through my intuition and through my spirit, which I think all of us could admit that we feel that too. You know, you get a bad feeling, maybe I shouldn't go down that road. Something's telling me inside, I'm getting this intuition, don't go down there. You know, it's not like a voice like, don't go down there, like some people say they actually talk to God and hear voices. It's that feeling, that intuition, and that's all Socrates meant when he said there was a demon inside me. So if I won the Olympics, people would say, oh, you had a demon, man. And all they're saying is the gods were with me, that I was blessed that day. When Jesus is healing and casting out the devils, the daemons, what's actually going on in the Greek mind is Jesus is showing his authority over the Greek gods. He's showing his authority over the gods, because just like there's a positive example, you just won a race that you had, the gods must have been with you, you had a demon, the gods were interacting with you on earth. There's a negative sense to this as well, where it's like, well, you're sick, you have a disease that we can't explain, no one can heal you, therefore you have a daemon, it's something from the gods. It's beyond man to heal you. Okay? That's all this term means. Again, I do not care about the English modern, how we view these words in this I mean, I care. But I look at it as distorted. I want to know, how did the ancient Greeks hear that passage? How did they interpret these words? I'm more interested in that. So I know that I have to immerse myself in Greek culture, learn as much as I can about ancient Greek literature and how the ancient Greeks heard these words and understood these phrases. Because the God of the Old Testament is in Exodus chapter 4 admits, I created the blind, the dumb, the deaf, the mute. I made all these sick, diseased people, is what God of the Old Testament says. But modern Christianity says that no, the Dark Lord, the Greco-Roman God from the Jewish Gnostic Talmud, he had a bunch of children and they're called demons, and they're the ones actually infecting everyone. And when Jesus is casting out demons, he's actually casting out the children of fallen angels. Meanwhile, the God of the Old Testament said, no, I created all these things. Exodus 4. Okay? When Moses and God are first talking in Exodus 4, God explains to Moses, I created all these sick people. They're my creations. Okay? And I have the power to make people sick, and I have the power to heal people. God takes full credit. All right. So these are transliterated words. That's what I mean whenever I say a transliterated word. They're taking a word from the ancient language, inserting it into the new one, and now it's going to take a whole new meaning that no one from the ancient world heard what you just heard. Okay? No ancient Greek understood the word angelos, angel, to mean a guy with wings and a sword coming down from heaven. In fact, the Greeks had to change their word messenger, which was angelos. They had to create a new word. I forgot what it is. It's like Angelo Ferrari or Ferraro, Ferrara, something like this. They had to create a whole new word to mean messenger because the church, the translators, destroyed the original meaning of the word angel. Okay, so now let's take an example of, we're going to look at a verse from the New Testament. 2 words were left transliterated. They didn't translate them. They transliterated them. They brought them in from Greek, from Hebrew, left them, created a new word, and then poof, inserted it into the Bible. And let's see which version makes more sense. Okay. So in 2 Corinthians 11, 13 to 15, the Apostle Paul says, for such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. Okay. Let's take those transliterated words and translate them properly. And let's see, is Paul saying that the Dark Lord Lucifer, the pagan Greco-Roman god from the Talmud, Azazel, he's transforming himself into a messenger of light, to an angel? Or is it saying something completely different? For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. So what's the context of this verse? There are false prophets, deceitful workers who are transforming themselves as if they are representing Christ, as if they are pastors, as if they are, and that's what the word angel can mean. It means servant, it means messenger, it means pastor, it means envoy. There are ambassador, it means a lot of words in ancient Greek. It doesn't mean, this is a transliterated word. Okay? So, for such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ, and no marvel, for the adversary, your enemy, your opponent, the one who withstands you, for your adversary, the adversary himself will transform himself into a messenger of light. Therefore, it is no great thing if the ministers be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. So Paul is either telling us 2 things. If we use the transliterated words, he's saying that Lucifer, the Greco-Roman god from the Talmud, he can transform himself into a messenger of light. More frightening is if you actually translate those words properly. What the Apostle Paul is actually warning us is that our enemies will pretend to be Christian pastors stand in our churches and preach from the pulpit. They'll preach from the front of the church, knowing damn well they're Gnostics, they're Freemasons, they're Kabbalist Jews, they're like a cancer who has snuck inside our church. Okay? And they're going to preach their version. They're going to translate the Bible their way. See, which one is it, do you think? Do you think Paul's warning us that our enemies can transform themselves into pastors? Because that's what it says if you translate those words. That word angelos, angel, that's transliterated there, that could mean messenger, it could mean pastor, it could be an envoy, someone sent it. There's a couple different words. And in this context, it could very well be a pastor. That don't marvel. For your enemy, the enemy, can transform himself into a pastor of light. Which one do you think it is? Which one do you think is more frightening? Do you think the guys who translated our Bibles, the priests, the Gnostics, we went over the Sistine Chapel, right? I showed you that painting with God, which we're not supposed to be drawing God. Old man God with his arm wrapped around some hot young, his glory, Shekinah, Sophia, wisdom, in the brain, touching Adam. Do you think those guys are Christians? That's a Gnostic painting. That is a 100% Gnostic painting, no different than The Matrix is a 100% Gnostic movie. So, if the Sistine Chapel is considered Christian, which it's not, it's obviously a Gnostic painting, do you think that the guys who translated and gave us our Bible, do you think they would have written down no marvel, for your enemy, the adversary, can transform himself into a pastor of light, a priest of light, a messenger of light? Or is it better for them to go, no, use that Hebrew word Satan, just leave it in Hebrew, now it's the Dark Lord? Because what is the Gnostic's job? The Gnostic's job is to fuse the Bible with paganism, get you to believe in a pagan god named Lucifer. Mix the two theologies, the two ideologies together, and trick you into believing into nonsense, to get you to reject the one true God. That's the Gnostic's goal. The Gnostic's job is to get you to chase this imaginary figure named Lucifer. Guys, again, the Lucifer dilemma. I'm Lucifer. Okay, let's pretend I'm Lucifer right now. I'm Lucifer. And I need to defeat God. How do I, as Lucifer, defeat God? Very easy. Very easy. I can destroy the God of the Bible like this if I was Lucifer. And it's very simple. All I have to do... See, I'm Lucifer. I read the Bible. I know... I know what I'm going to do. God already wrote down, and there's the prophecy here. Okay, God, so you need me to build a one-world government. Okay, I need to do that. Oh, I need to give birth to my son, the Antichrist. Even though the word Antichrist doesn't appear in the book of Revelation, neither does the word Lucifer. Okay, so I need to do that. What else do I need to do, God? Let me just check. Oh, how about this, God? How about I don't do it? How about I read your prophecies. You need me to do quite a lot, God. How about I just tell you to shove it? I'm not going to make a one-world government. I'm not going to put no Antichrist on the planet. I read your prophecies. I've had 2,000 years since Christ to plan, and I have a new plan. My plan is I'm going to the beach, and I'm going to chill with my homies, and we're going to just get some girls and have more Nephilim babies and have more demon babies or whatever. You do you, God. I'm just going to chill at the beach. God's a liar. All of God's prophecies depend on the free will of Lucifer. And if I was Lucifer, I'd just read and go, oh, this is what I'm going to do? Forget it. If I don't do it, the egg's on your face, God. It's called the Lucifer dilemma. Okay? It doesn't make sense. Lucifer can defeat God by doing nothing, and none of God's prophecies will come true. And then you say, well, no, God's going to force him to do it. Okay, well, now you don't have your precious free will, which your free will is also a Gnostic concept. Okay? the whole story doesn't make sense. It's like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you remove Indiana Jones from the movie, it still ends the same way. Indiana Jones serves no purpose or point in that movie. Just like the story of Indiana Jones makes no sense, Raiders of the Lost Ark. In this story too, all Lucifer has to do to defeat God is just not do what God said he's going to do. He can read. I mean, Lucifer, it says, marvel not, for the Satan can turn into an angel of light. He must have read the Bible. Not hard for him to defeat God. Just go chill at the beach. God, you F off. That's it. God loses. God's like, no, you're going to make me look bad. I said you were going to do all this stuff, man. Come on. No. All right. The devil tempts Jesus. Let's talk about this because I know people are going to bring this up. And Jesus was led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil, the diablos. All right. Well, let's translate that word. Who are the enemies in Jesus' story? Who are the slanderers, the false accusers, the tempters, the liars, the cheaters, the Pharisees, the Jewish Pharisees, the same people who wrote the Talmud where you get Azazel, the fallen angel who gave birth to all the Nephilim and all that stuff. Okay, so those guys. Now let's look at an example from the the Greek Septuagint. And here's in the story of Esther. And in the days of King Artaxerxes, or in that day, King Artaxerxes presented to Esther as much as existed to Haman the devil. Haman the devil. Oh, wait, they didn't translate the word devil as devil. They didn't transliterate it here. They translated it properly like they should have. Why is it that translators can pick and choose when they're going to translate the verse, but then not, and then transliterate the verse? So now in the story of Jesus, the devil here is Lucifer. But if you were to read the Greek Septuagint, Haman, who we know is a normal man, he's also called the devil. But it's the same word. There's no difference between, if you're reading a Greek Bible, you can't play this game. It's the same word in Greek, all across the board. And you're going to read that Greek word, how an ancient Greek person would have read that word, and you would recognize that the enemies of Christ, which in this case would be the Pharisees, who controlled the Roman Empire at this time. So when the Pharisees are offering Jesus the kingdoms of the world, we know Jerusalem was the most powerful city in the Roman Empire. We know that Jerusalem controlled the Roman Empire. We know that Jerusalem was the richest city in the Roman Empire, the most fortified city of the Roman Empire. It controlled the world trade from east to west. Like, don't believe the Christian pastors who tell you, oh, Jerusalem was this little desert, nothing land, it was worthless land. No one wanted it. There was nothing there. It was just this. It's the most documented Roman province in all of antiquity. And according to those documents from antiquity, of the greatest province ever recorded, it was the greatest province in the Roman Empire with the greatest, most richest city. It was the prize jewel of the whole world during the time of Jesus. So, why are the translators going to transliterate the word in the story of Jesus, but in the story of Haman, when we know is a man, he's also called the devil? So I'm saying that in ancient Greek, when you're reading this in ancient Greek, you understand that the devil didn't bring Jesus to the wilderness to tempt him. His enemies, his slanderers, his opponents, his adversaries, his Satans brought him to the wilderness. And we know that his Satans were the Jewish Pharisees, the guys who, all this Gnostic stuff is from their Talmud. Those guys. The guys who I just quoted earlier, who believe in Azazel and all this stuff, whose goal is to share Kabbalah with the whole world and convert the whole world to Gnosticism. Those guys. Those are the guys tempting Jesus. It's not the devil. Okay? Yeah, okay, Sadducees as well. There's Sadducees and there's Pharisees. The reason I don't mention the Sadducees so much is because they're non-existent today. The Pharisees are the surviving sect. The Sadducees have kind of disappeared from the world. So, my point is, when you read this and you translate the word properly, you have the historical context and you understand that the bagels of the time had all the power in the world during that time to offer Jesus the kingdoms of the world, no different than the bagels today. If you want to be a world leader today, where do you go? You go to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, you put that pancake on your head, and you pray your ass to that wall, and now you could be President Trump, now you can be President Putin, now you could be, whatever, Prime Minister of Britain or Chancellor of Germany. Just put that pancake on your head, you go to that wall and you pray, right? So no different than today is what Christ was going through back then. And then when it says angels came to minister unto Jesus, again, translate that word angel. It could be servants, it could be pastors, it could be messengers, it could be envoys. The word angel means someone who was sent to do something. That's how an ancient Greek understands that word. A messenger. Why is he a messenger? Because someone sent him to do that. Okay? Why is that guy an envoy? Why can you write an envoy as a messenger, an angelos? Because someone sent that envoy to do this. So that word angelos, in its purest Greek sense, means someone who was sent to do something. So when it says, and then angels came to minister and help him, well, the guy just fasted for 40 days in the desert. He just rejected and refuted and schooled the Pharisees or the Sadducees or the opponents of his time. So I'm just saying that I can very easily translate the whole Bible. Just take all these transliterated words, translate them properly, and click, the whole story becomes monotheistic. The entire story becomes monotheistic just by translating these words. Now here, we looked at this earlier, remember? Set thou a wicked man over him, and let Satan, transliterated word, let an adversary stand at his right hand. If you go to the Greek Septuagint, that word Satan is also devil. Place against him the sinner, and let the devil stand at his right hand. Again, transliterated word devil, transliterated word Satan. Translate the words, and the Dark Lord Lucifer just fades away, and you're left with pure monotheism. You're left with a one God. He's not battling anyone, especially not some Lucifer, pagan Roman god from the Jewish Talmud based on Azazel, Kabbalistic Freemason crap, who just has to do nothing to defeat God and just go, what, God? I'm not doing this crap. I'm not. What? I have to rebuild the Roman Empire? Nah, I'm not going to do that. Screw you. What? This Antichrist, the word Antichrist isn't in the book of Revelation. There's no such, that word doesn't exist there. I've got to somehow give birth to the Antichrist who's not in the book of Revelation. I'm not doing any of it. It's over. Forget it. I'm going to the beach. Gonna go find the babes. That's all he has to do. God defeated. Another thing, another passage. I'm just bringing up some passages. I mean, I could do this lesson for like 10 hours and go through every single example, including like books, like the book of Jude. If you think the book of Jude belongs in the New Testament, then you also have to accept the assumptions of Moses, and you also have to accept the book of Enoch. Because the book of Jude quotes books that were rejected. So the reason the book of Jude is such a suspicious book, it was the last book allowed in the canon. It was not accepted by early Christians. It was not accepted by many of the church fathers. No one knows who this Jude really is. And Jude quotes the book of Enoch verbatim, which is a rejected book. So you've got this weird, mysterious Jude guy quoting a book that was rejected. He starts talking about the devil fighting Michael for the body of Moses, which that's based on Jewish folklore. That has nothing to... That story's not in the Bible. Never does Satan and Michael fight over the body of Moses. We have no idea what this Jude is talking about because he's quoting Jewish folklore. So you've got this book inserted in right before Revelation, a scroll. And let me tell you something. There is when they're making the Bible, it didn't come as a book. It didn't come like this. It came in scrolls. The word Bible means scroll. And they compiled a bunch of scrolls and made codices out of them. And there is not one codice from the ancient world that agrees 100% with another. We assume that this is 100% perfect, where even this King James Bible, they removed several books from this King James. This is not the King James Bible. This is like a King James Bible revised version from the 1800s. Okay? This is not even close to the original King James. Anyone who says the King James Bible is the perfect word of God, well, then you need to go get yourself a real King James Bible. And it's going to look a lot more like the Catholic Bible than it does your current King James Bible today. So guys, we are living in an unprecedented time where we actually can put all the manuscripts of the world together and actually have a way clearer understanding. I mean, it's probably more confusing in the sense we have a lot of work to do. But through this work, we're going to have a better understanding of what the Bibles actually are trying to tell us, right? This has never been possible in any other time in history, especially when the common man can now read and write and we don't have to rely on this nonsense coming from our scholars, right? Not that all scholars are bad, but I mean, any good scholar will tell you need to watch what scholars are up to. A lot of them have their own agendas, right? So we're going to look at this word because a lot of people will... Lucifer's not a god, but he is a god, but he isn't. And it's like, see, he's right here in the New Testament where it says, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. All right. So what this passage is saying is that the God of this world, now that word world there is not the word cosmos. It's very specifically the Greek word aeon. Okay, it's the Greek word aeon. And so this could be translated as the God of the ages, the God of age, the God of the ages, or the eternal God. It doesn't necessarily mean, it doesn't mean world here. It's the Greek word aeon. It's not, if it said cosmos, then yes, it would be the world, but it's actually the Greek word aeon. So the problem is this. So this God of the world has blinded the minds of the people that didn't believe. And it's the Greek word theos, God. Well, in 2 Thessalonians 2:11-12, it says, for this cause God, theos, the same word used, shall send them strong delusions that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Okay. So they're going to say that, notice how the translators wrote that word God. Little g, meaning it's Lucifer. The problem is capital G God is doing the same thing as little g God. They're doing the exact same thing. Okay? In whom the little g God, what has he done? The God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believed not. What does big normal God do? And for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie. They're doing the same thing because they're both God. It's just the translators chose to write a little g. It's not God, it's Lucifer. Theos. No one reading this in Greek would ever read this as if Lucifer, the little g God, is blinding the people that didn't believe. Just like how in 2 Thessalonians, it's not Lucifer blinding the people, it's God who's blinding the people because they all might be damned because they believe not the truth. No different than the God of the ages, the God of the age, our God, the God of the Bible. He has blinded the minds of them which believe not. It's the same thing. So who is it? Is it Lucifer or God who's blinding the minds of the people? Because does that make sense to you guys? Can someone answer me? Did that click? I'd just like to get some feedback on that. Okay, so when you read stuff like this, anyways, my whole point is I can go through the whole Bible with you and present to you a monotheistic translation and show you that the only way these people have been able to create their Kabbalistic, Gnostic, Talmudic version of the Bible, King James, okay, is by playing these games that can't be played in the original languages. You cannot write little g God. You can't write this devil here and slanderer there. Do you understand? It's only through the Bible translating into a new language that you can actually, get away with this this nonsense. Does that make sense? All right, so I think we're now going to end again where we started. Verse of the week. See now that I, even I am he, there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. I am the Lord, there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me, that they may know from the rising of the sun and from the west that there is none beside me. I am the Lord, there is none else. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, Yehovah, do all these things. All right. Are there any questions? We're 2 hours. That was my mark. Actually, I wanted to be under 2 hours, but I'm really bad at this. I'm sorry, guys. Are there any questions on this? I'm going to go through the chat, actually. I haven't really been reading. This is where having a sidekick would be nice. What are your thoughts on guys like Dustin Nemos? I think I was fighting with this guy, this Nemos guy. Yeah, I asked him for a debate. I wanted to debate him. Because, he is like, man, I watched a debate with him and Adam Green, and it was so terrible. It was the worst debate ever because I found myself siding with Adam Green. Like, that's bad. Because Adam Green is pointing out all the nonsense and all the Talmudic theology in this guy's view. And for you to get me to side with Adam Green in a debate, that's special. But Adam Green is just good at pointing out the Talmudic nonsense, right? But he doesn't separate it like I do. Adam Green will never debate me, never in a million years. And I don't think Dustin Nemos will ever debate me. Nemos, that's his name. They'll never debate me. I don't think so. I tried to debate both of them. And I would really like to. I just don't think they'll touch me with a 10-foot pole. Because it's just I destroy Adam Green's argument 100%. Just by my interpretation of the Bible, right? And I'm removing all the Talmudic, Pharisaic, just like I did today by going over the translation and showing you all the transliterations, all the changes that were made, that the only way that they can make their Talmudic, Pharisaic, Gnostic folklore come true is through translations. You can't play this game in the original languages. When you're reading the Bible in the original languages and you're checking it out, and you see that word diablos, they can't transliterate it here and translate it there and create two completely different stories. It just stays in Greek. Diablos here, Diablos there, and now you're forced to read it as an ancient Greek. And it doesn't read the same. It's just like this word theos, right? It's just like the word theos here. You can't play this little g translation game, because when you're reading it in Greek, it's theos across the board. You're going to read it that God, the God of the universe, our God, blinded the minds of the people. Just like it says in 2 Thessalonians that the same God, theos, also sent strong delusion so that people would believe a lie. The same action, but in this translation, with that little tiny g, because they were able to do that in English, you can't pull that game in Greek. And you've now eliminated, this verse is not talking about Lucifer, the god of the material world. There is only one God, there is none else. Do you believe what God said in the Old Testament? Which God do you worship? Right? So no, I don't think that Nemos guy would ever debate me. We also have Karaite Jews who believe in the Hebrew Bible Tanakh, reject the authority of the Talmud. Yeah, my favorite Jewish teachers were Karaite Jews. I like Karaite Jews, but I still think they're delusional and completely insane overall. Like I don't know how you can. I don't know. It's okay, you can reject the Talmud. That's step one. But in my opinion, they also fully reject the prophets, and they reject Moses, because it's just Christ is the only guy in history that could meet the requirements to be the Messiah, right? So if you guys actually had questions, can you repost them instead of me having to go through everything like an idiot? Recently on X-Space confessed to having been a dancer in a gay club. What? Nemos has recently on an X-Space confessed to having been dancer in a gay club. He's also terrible Bibleist. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Persian drum, man. Really nice to see you. He was Persian drum was one of the originals, like probably like my top like 25 or 50 subscribers back in like 2017 or 2018 under my old name. So me and Persian drum go way back. Sinners who have wow, I was offered a job at a gay bar when I was about 20 years old, and they offered to pay me. They told me that it paid like between $500 to $800 a night in tips, and I turned it down. I'll never forget like this idea, because back then, when I was in my early 20s, 21, 22, I was pretty jacked. I was in really good shape, like paratrooper shape, and I was so revolted. I did not care that I could make $500 to $800 a night. The thought of taking off my shirt and being a straight bartender in a gay bar, serving a bunch of gay guys their drinks for money while every one of them is raping me with their eyes, revolted me so much that you couldn't pay me $500 to $800 a night to be a bartender, just serve drinks with my shirt off. No way. You couldn't pay me $10,000 a night to do that. No way. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. So this guy was a dancer in a gay club. Wow, that's interesting. Hope they paid him more than $500 a night. Or $800. Look, I'm not perfect. I had a very sinful life. I didn't work in a gay bar, but I'm not perfect at all. Like my past life, I still have sleepless nights from the life that I lived. I don't like to talk about my past. There's a reason why. The Apostle Paul also said he was the chief of all sinners. He used to hunt down and kill Christians and stuff. So, none of us are perfect, and anyone could come to Christ and be redeemed. So it's not, I'm not judging the guy for being, I shouldn't judge him for being a dancer in a gay bar. I'm going to judge him based upon his doctrine. I think his doctrine's completely messed up and Talmudic. Looking for questions. I'm just going to go to the end. Maybe you guys reposted some of them. Yeah, my mother's, I've got some Irish in me for sure. Like, my mother's last name is Irish. But it's French Canadian because French Canada was founded by a lot of French, but a lot of Scandinavian French. So I know my Irish clans and everything, O'Neill, O'Brennan. These are some of my I'm actually descended from some of the most hated Irish clans by the British, like the O'Neills and the O'Brennans and stuff like that. So I'm definitely, I've got some Irish in me, and French obviously, but I'm very specifically French Norman. I'm Scandinavian French, and also majority of my Irish names are Norman Irish. Just like O'Brennan, O'Neill. I have only 25% of my Irish names are ethnic Irish, pre-Norman invasion. A lot of my 75% of my Irish names are Scandinavian. Just like 75% of my French names are also Scandinavian. So where I'm French and I'm Irish from my mother, the majority of her last names on our family tree are Viking last names from the Viking invasion, right? So what's your opinion on Waraka bin Nafal? So this would be the teacher of Muhammad, the Ebionite priest. So the Ebionite priest, I think that's who it is, Waraka bin Nafal. He would have been without looking him up, that would have been, I think it was the uncle or brother of his first wife, and who was the millionaire Jewish trader apparently. Waraka bin Nafal was Ebionite priest, and they specifically accept the Gospels, but they reject the letters of Paul. So there's no surprise that which is probably all folklore. I don't really believe the story of Muhammad. I think it was based on someone, but we have no Roman sources, no Persian sources. The only sources we have to back up Muhammad are what the Arabs wrote about him. And it's not like Jesus, where as we go back in time is where we find the most written about Jesus. That's how history should work. Muhammad is a guy who gets bigger as time goes on. That's not how history works. History, with Jesus, the more we know about Jesus is back in the 1st century when he lived. And then we can go to Roman sources written by pagan Romans who hated Christians, who admit there was a guy named Christ who was crucified under Tiberius, and that all his followers were persecuted by a guy named Nero, whose name equals 666 in Hebrew. I can go to Roman sources for that. I can go to Jewish sources and read about Christ. The guys who hated Jesus, I can go to them. I can go to the Talmud and read about Jesus. I can go to Josephus and read about Jesus. If I want to read about Muhammad, I have to go to Arab sources written way after he died. That's where I'm going to learn about Muhammad. And then the stories just get bigger and bigger and bigger and more elaborate and greater. And that's just not how history is written. That's not how history works, guys. That's how fables are written, right? So that's a Waraka ibn Nafal, or Waraka bin Nafal. This would have been the cousin or uncle or brother of Muhammad's wife, and he was a Christian who rejected Paul and only accepted the Gospels. And that's why Muslims today, they view the Apostle Paul as some evil guy. The prophet Jesus, may peace be upon him, came turned everyone Muslim, and then Paul came and corrupted everything immediately after him. And then that's why Muhammad had to come, to undo what Paul did, because Jesus is a failed prophet and his message was destroyed by the evil Paul. Even though Paul's grand message, Paul is preparing us how to live once the temple's destroyed. And Paul is bringing us back to the life of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and the Israelites, who lived at a time when there was no temple, when there was no Torah, there was no law. That Abraham was a righteous man who lived by faith, by the grace of God. And that all Paul is doing is bringing us back to the beginning of the Torah, before there was a law and a temple and stuff. And so Paul, to me, literally wrote the guidebook for how Jews can leave Judaism and get away from all that stuff and prepare us for how we're supposed to live once the temple is destroyed, which is just bringing us back to Noah, bringing us to pre-Moses, right? Temple gets destroyed, and now what's happening? We're going back to a time when Aryans, Semites, Egyptians, all the sons of Moses believed in the monotheistic God. Abraham believed in the so I don't know why people hate Paul. Paul's amazing. I wouldn't be a Christian without Paul. Some incorporate entities, all those, and have superpowers. What's the connection between Saturn and Gnosticism / Judaism? Well, they believe that Saturday, obviously, is Saturn's day, Saturn, and Saturn is the equivalent to the Greek god Kronos. So if you know the mythology there, this is going to tie into what is a giant, the giants in Greek mythology. It's kind of a rather vulgar story. So it's, pretty much Kronos and Saturn were like the Zeus or Jupiter. So Jupiter is Zeus, just the Roman version, and then Kronos is the Greek version of Saturn. So Zeus overthrew his father, Kronos, just like how Jupiter overthrew Saturn. And Saturn and Kronos were apparently eating their own children. That's why, actually, if you guys saw earlier, let's see if I can go back to it, actually. This picture here, do you see the picture I used in the corner here? Do you see the scythe here? And do you see this? That's why I actually used this picture. This is Kronos. This is Saturn. Saturday, Sabbath day. This is Saturn eating his own children. And this is how they depict the God of the Bible. He was kind of like a demiurge, not really. He was a more powerful God. The Titans were born to fight them. Okay, the giants were born to fight, like Kronos and stuff. Is it Kronos? Do I have it right? Or maybe there was one more. Let me see. Not the Titans. The Titans fought against... I was talking about the Giants. The Giants are not the same as the Titans. Sorry, I'm tired. I get stuff mixed up. The Giants... The Giants were normal-sized men. The word giant does not mean what people think. They were just of great strength. And so no, it's Gaia and Uranus. Sorry, I'm wrong. I got the mythology mixed up. I apologize. So the giants fought against Uranus and Gaia. The Titans fought against. Let's make sure I have it right. The Titans fought against. So the Titans, like Zeus, so they fought against Kronos. The Titans fought with Kronos against Zeus. Okay, so in Greek mythology, sorry guys, I got that mixed up. Uranus and Gaia, which I'm pretty sure they gave birth to Kronos, where you get time. So the giants were born to fight Uranus, and then Zeus overthrew his father, Kronos, and it's just like Jupiter overthrew his father, Saturn. Okay, if that makes sense to you guys. So he's depicted just like that. That's who this is in this picture. In this picture here, that is actually Kronos or Saturn. And they're just depicted as evil gods who have to be overthrown. Okay, so sorry I got Uranus. It was a different age. And you can see the Greek gods, the Roman gods, they're based off some kind of real story. They're very human. They're rapists, and they're party animals and drunks, and they commit incest, and they're not like the God of the Bible, you know? Like, they have names like Zeus and Aphrodite and you know, Osiris and Horus, and it's not like God. Like, the God of the Bible, when Moses said, "Hey God, who are you? Who do I tell them is sending me?" He said, what did he say in Hebrew? Haya asher haya, I think, right? That's what he said. He said, I am that I am. I exist, if you want to. It's pretty much saying exist is sending you. He didn't give a name like Jupiter or Mars or Saturn or anything like that. He gives a name, that who could name God? Do you know? Who could name God? So the name for me is very convincing. Do you know? It's not like, he's not. It's not like the Greek gods or the Roman gods. It's not. It's a very realistic name, is what I'm saying. I am that I am is, I guess, how they translate it into English, but in Hebrew it would be like Hayash or Haya, and this is more like I exist, to exist, to be, and it's just so believable. It's not like any other religion of its time. Just tell them exist is sending you, because no one could have named God like we give all these pagan gods these ridiculous names and attributes, right? So, anyways, where do you believe the Kabbalah originated from? The Kabbalah, with Philo of Alexandria, is, I'm gonna say, the basis of Kabbalah is with Philo of Alexandria is going to be the it's just mystic Judaism, right? That's all it is so, I mean, if you want to know, like, the term, I don't know. I think it'd probably be like the Zohar and stuff like this. It's way later, but the essence and the basis of the Kabbalah is back to Philo of Alexandria, who's now incorporating the Torah with pagan, I shouldn't say pagan, polytheistic ideologies and theories and Greek and Babylonian and Egyptian concepts, right? It's the fusion of opposites, right? That's the as above, so below. Their whole goal is to mix things. And that's it. So, I mean, like, it evolves over time, but, it's just... That's it. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it all goes back to Philo of Alexandria, and then it's going to expand over the centuries, but it's just really the fusing polytheistic stuff with monotheistic stuff. It's transforming, the God of the Bible into exactly what we have today. Like, no wonder so many people deny him and reject him, because they don't know him. It's like, that's why I can't stand Adam Green. Adam Green is not attacking the God of the Bible. He's attacking the way these Gnostics have interpreted the God of the Bible. He's attacking Gnostics, the Gnostic straw man. He's not attacking what the Bible says. He's attacking how these Gnostics have taught the Bible, which I'm trying to destroy. Right? I'm trying to destroy their interpretation. Adam Green is selling their interpretation as if this is what it says. It's like, no, dude. No, that's not. You're attacking a Gnostic straw man that doesn't exist. And my goal is to destroy that straw man so you can't throw any more rocks at it. Right? That's why he won't debate me, I think. So, topic, what was your opinion of Tesla? I don't know. Tesla was a genius. Like, he was way better than the fraud Einstein. Einstein was pathetic. Einstein was a total fraud and thief. So I would much rather go with the Serbian Orthodox guy, the inventor who actually invented the modern world. Like, we owe most of our world, like the energy, the electricity I'm using right now is thanks to Nikola Tesla. And the fact that he died poor and broke with nothing tells me he was the real deal, who was just bent over by the elites. That's generally what happens in this world when you're the real deal. Like Elon Musk. Elon Musk's a thief. Same with guys like Steve Jobs and Zuckerberg. They're not the brains behind Facebook and Twitter and PayPal and Apple. There were way smarter guys in the background that made all this stuff. Just like Tesla was the guy in the background who was cheated out of all his inventions, and idiots like, Edison and Einstein and, and who was it? Was it JP Morgan? Was it Morgan? Who was it? John Jacob Astor financed Tesla. That's the other thing. Tesla's investor died on the Titanic, John Jacob Astor. John Jacob Astor also opposed the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank. He died on the Titanic, and the guy who owned the Titanic was the guy who started the Federal Reserve. Funny that all his competitors died on the Titanic. His ship. They all died on his ship that he didn't go on. That he was too sick and was late and couldn't get on the ship. But him and his best friend didn't get on the ship. And then all his rivals and enemies died on his ship. And one of those guys was Tesla's investor, John Jacob Astor, who also, again, opposed the Federal Reserve. But he also made a lot of his money. He was the largest landowner in America, so he was arguably the richest American of the time, John Jacob Astor. But he also, I think, made most of his money through the opium trade. So, I mean, even though on one hand he appears to be a good guy, he made all his money through drug dealing and through poisoning the Chinese. So, I'm pretty sure John Jacob Astor made his fortune there. So Tesla, I don't know, we owe the modern world to him, right? He didn't just give us some bogus theory like Einstein and then... Oh, that quote from Tesla about Einstein's hilarious. When they're like, what do you think of the theory of relativity? And Tesla's like, it's like a homeless beggar dressed in royal robes. To the uneducated, it's dazzling and wow. But to the educated and who know, that's not a king. He's just some poor beggar, homeless guy dressed in royal robes. So it looks fancy and smart and stuff, but anyone who knows what they're looking at goes, this guy Einstein's a fraud. That's what Tesla said about the theory of relativity and Einstein. So, I mean, that's a funny quote. That's what I think of Tesla. So, did I miss, do you believe someone becomes saved or how someone can become a Christian? I think I think some people have the ability to choose, where they have the freedom of choice, not the free will, but the freedom of choice to become a Christian. But then some people are forced against their will. Some people don't have a choice to become Christians, and that's what I would say the difference is spiritual baptism. There's 3 baptisms, right? There's fire baptism, there's spiritual baptism, and then there's water baptism. And I would say that water baptism are for those who choose Christ. Spiritual baptism, like the Apostle Paul. Guys, the Apostle Paul was on his horse going to Damascus to do what? To kill Christians. To hunt them down, put them in chains, bring them back to Jerusalem and kill them. While he's on his horse, Jesus comes to him, blinds him, throws him off his horse. The guy couldn't see for 3 days until another Christian came and put his hands, I think his name was Ananias, put his hands on Paul's head and gave Paul his sight back after 3 days. Now, do you think Paul chose to be a Christian? Do you think that Christ blinding him, talking to him, having a conversation, asking him, why are you persecuting my people, throwing him off his horse, do you not think that that altered Paul's freedom of choice? And Paul might have been so scared and terrified that of course he's going to become a Christian. Can you imagine if that happened to you? Did Paul choose to become a Christian? No, he didn't choose. Did Moses choose to follow God? No, he didn't choose. He was forced. How do you say no when God confronts you like that and comes to you like that? It's like Jonah and the whale. Do you think Jonah had a choice? The further away he got from doing his job as a prophet, God steps in and makes the storm worse and worse and worse to the point where Jonah's like, all right, I have to throw myself overboard or we're all dead. You know, he's forced against his will to go back. Jeremiah chapter 1, Jeremiah was born to be a prophet. Born. He had no choice. I knew you before you were born. I have ordained you to be a prophet. You know. So some people don't get that choice. It's forced upon them, and God is going to raise them up and do something special with them so that the others will come to God through their choice. Okay, God will raise up vessels of honor and vessels of dishonor, you know, according to the Apostle Paul. You know, God will raise vessels of honor. If you go to Romans 9, read all of Romans 9, you'll see that some people don't have a choice. Some people are just born to be God's wrath. Pharaoh was born to be God's wrath. He didn't have a choice. Moses didn't have a choice. Christ, you know, God's will be done. Christ didn't really have a choice. So I believe in the 3 baptisms, that the water baptism are for those who choose. The spiritual baptism are for those who, like Paul did not have a choice. Paul was already a Christian before he was ever baptized. Paul was a Christian. He was baptized in the Spirit. And then you have fire baptism, which is the lake of fire, where sinners go to be made cleansed, right? Christ came to save sinners. He came to save mankind. The Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 that everyone will be saved by the fire baptism. You know, John the Baptist said, I baptize in water, but he who is coming after me will baptize with fire and the Holy Spirit. So that's how I kind of view things. I think that most Christians can come through choice. A lot of people can come through choice. But there's also a huge chunk of people it's against their will. God forces them. God, like me, I would say I fought Christianity. It took me like 8 months to become a Christian. I knew it was the truth and I was fighting it, and it was a very painful experience for me. Like I had 2 really bad panic attacks when I was becoming a Christian. I was fighting it so hard, and I was just in such a unique situation. And I'll never forget, my first panic attack was so brutal, like anxiety attack. I don't know, like I had this, like, it felt like there was a dagger in my stomach and someone was just twisting and twisting and twisting, and the pain was so unbearable from all the stress that I was under, you know. I just made this banking documentary, and I don't even want to talk about what was going on in my personal life. and I collapsed in my backyard. I'll never forget this. I collapsed from the pain, from all the like, stress and anxiety. I couldn't even move, and I was literally in the fetal position, like begging for this pain inside me to stop. And then all I could see through the fence lattice, the sun was starting to set, and the sun was shining through the fence. And it was shining on this messed up angle through the lattice, and the sun rays were like bursting through it. And then I'd never seen the sun do this before, where the light was so intense, shining through the fence, like onto me, as I laid in the fetal position, just begging for this pain to stop. Couldn't move. I was completely frozen in the fetal position. And I'll never forget looking at the sun rays, and that's what calmed me down. And I could see very vividly the color red, the color orange, the color yellow, forming this compass rose with the most intense sun rays I'd ever seen in my life. Like, it was like magical. You know, I'd never seen the sun create sun rays like that through the lattice as I laid there like a vegetable. And just because I was fighting Christianity so hard, I just didn't want to become a Christian, even though I knew it was like the truth, you know. And that was the first, you know, anxiety attack. I had one more. But anyways, I had a very bad conversion. It was very painful and difficult for me. And it took about 8 months for me to finally accept it. But it was, I would say I was like dragged to Christianity, kicking and screaming against my will. I didn't want to become a Christian. I don't know where I can get the full text of Gabriel Jurjavin. Unfortunately, I don't have my Russian contacts anymore. I could ask. I can ask to maybe some of my Russian friends. Most of my sources for that were direct Russian translations from my friends, but I don't have those contacts anymore. So I don't know if I can help you get those. I can try. I've got some other Russian contacts I can ask. Yeah, I don't care about, you know, baptism so much. I mean, I'm not gonna. I mean, I'd rather you follow Christ than majority of people who become Christian go get baptized and they don't act like a Christian. They're not Christian. So I'd say that the guy who acts more like Jesus and lives by Jesus, and like, where are you gonna go get baptized? What church? You know, if you want to be a Catholic, these are the steps you have to do. You got to put your left foot in, you got to take your left foot out, you got to put your right foot in, and you got to shake it all about. You got to do the hokey pokey. Then you can get baptized and eat the cookie and drink the juice, drink the wine and all this stuff. You got to do the hokey pokey first. And I don't remember ever reading the apostles ever having to do the hokey pokey when they were baptized and when they did communion with Christ. And like where did all these rituals and stuff come from? They come from church traditions, the church fathers. They don't come from the Bible and stuff. So, I mean, where are you going to go to get baptized? You have to do all these rituals and pass all these tests. And it's like, I don't know. For me, it's not biblical. So, I can't believe that many people still believe in Musk. Yeah, I don't know how anyone could believe in Elon Musk or Donald Trump or any of these people. Get baptized in mega church. Joel Osteen's church. Or what are your thoughts? Slaying Nimrod. Oh, okay. So William, Jurgensen? What are your thoughts on the story of Dustin Nemos tells about Asa slaying Nimrod and stealing Adam's garments? Gave him powers. This is my point with Dustin Nemos. He just quoted Jewish folklore. He just quoted the Talmud. He just quoted the book of Jasher. He just quoted all this nonsense, right? And his whole thing, let's see. And again, so here, Greek Septuagint, how could Abraham live at the same time as Nimrod? How is it possible? You have to use the Jewish translation of the Bible. You have to use the Masoretic, where they changed all the dates and all the people. That's the only way that you can get Abraham living at the same time as Nimrod. If you use the Greek Septuagint or the Samaritan Pentateuch or Josephus, we've got three sources that are in agreement that this is the correct number and that the Jews must have changed their Masoretic. This is the only way you can say Esau killed Nimrod and took his armor, is if you accept the Jewish Talmud and the Bagels and the Pharisees and the Gnostics and the Kabbalists. You have to use their stuff. So that's my point. I was talking to a guy earlier today on Twitter, and he's like, what do you mean Dustin Nemos is teaching Kabbalah, teaching Gnosticism and Pharisaic Judaism? Well, that's just it. He teaches stuff like Esau killed Nimrod, when according to all the Bible versions we have, plus the historians of the time, it's impossible for Abraham to have lived with Nimrod or Noah or any of these people. Okay? You have to go to the Pharisees, the Christ killers, the Gnostics, the Freemasons. Their version will tell you that it happened. And I'm against those people. Dennis Nemos depends on those people. So who do you want to side with? Do you want to side with a guy who sides with the Freemasons, the Talmud, Jewish Gnosticism? Or do you want to side with the Bible version that opposes them? Which we have, again, Septuagint, Samaritan Pentateuch, Josephus, all in agreement against the Talmud and the Jewish Masoretic. Okay? So, I think I'm going to stop there. Do you have any books? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Dostoevsky as an author? I don't know. That's a tough question. It all depends on what you're into. I mean, if you're talking like, I don't know. I read a lot of, I don't know. It depends my mood. Like, if I'm reading history and stuff, I read a lot of encyclopedias, I read dictionaries, I read Bible translations, Bible versions, historians, Herodotus, Tacitus, whatever. It depends on whatever I'm studying. So if you mean like more, I don't really read like a lot of fiction or, I mean, Dostoevsky's great, Tolstoy. I mean, I love a lot of Russian writers. Pushkin. But there's no one that... It depends what I'm studying, I guess, that week will depend on if... I don't know. Depends. You'd have to expand more. You'd have to expand more on that. Like, I don't know. Depends on what I'm studying. Will be whatever. I don't have like a favorite writer. I like Genghis Khan. I like reading about Genghis Khan. I don't know why I'm so drawn to him. I find Genghis Khan's really fascinating. There was a book, was it Wolf of the Plains by Khan and Golden? I couldn't put the book down. Life of Genghis Khan. And it was just such a remarkable story. Of his youth and all that he had to overcome, and oh man, what a brutal life. If half that stuff is true about Genghis Khan, my God, did he have a brutal childhood, man. So I have a lot of respect for Genghis Khan. I mean, not the whole Muslim stuff, but he had a really interesting childhood. Yeah, so I don't know. I think I'm gonna stop it there, guys. Like, I'm almost at 3 hours again. I fail miserable every time. I'm like, yeah, it'll be under 2 hours, then it never is. Anyways, I hope you guys liked that today. I hope did it make sense to you guys what I said today, or was I completely out in left field? You know, like, guys, this is like what lives in my crazy head. So it's like, oh yeah, Count of Monte Cristo is really good. Alexander Dumas is amazing. Obviously, Three Musketeers. Yeah, Count of Monte Cristo is actually a really great one. It is very different than the movie, actually. So when you read the book, if you saw the movie and you read the book, that's what I started to realize. My friend warned me. My friend, actually, I had a friend. Well, we're not friends anymore, but I had an old friend that bought me the book, and they warned me that it was nothing like the movie. Yeah, Tarnished, go to bed, dude. Yeah, the books are different. The movie's different. I think the movie changed a couple good things, though. I'm not going to spoil them, but check out the movie, man. Actually watch the movie. It's got the guy from that actor. It has two good actors in it. The guy who played Jesus, what was his name? How did I forget his name? Shoot. The guy, Passion of the Christ. Come on, what was his name? Someone help me out here. Shoot. What was his name? I hate myself. I even have to look up his name. John Caviezel, Jim Caviezel, right? That's his name? Yeah, Jim Caviezel. But then it also has the other guy, oh, why is my browser Yandex? Damn it. Everything's in Russian. The guy, Henry Cavill. Okay, that's it. So the Count of Monte Cristo has Henry Cavill and Jim Caviezel in it, and they look so much alike in that, and like they look like father and son. So yeah, the movie Count of Monte Cristo is really, I don't know, there's some changes in it that I think are better than obviously books are better, but there's some changes that are good. It's kind of like Game of Thrones season 2, when the wildfire, when they put it on the boat and Tyrion sends the wildfire out into the bay and they blow up all the ships. That wasn't in the book. In the book, they had catapults launching the wildfire at the boats, but in the show, they just had one boat fill the whole bay up with wildfire and blow up all the boat. So there's some times where the show or the movie adaptations change things, and it actually is way better. But books will always be better because you get to look inside. Like, actors can only try to express what the actors are thinking, where the books can take you inside the character's head and tell you their deep feelings and emotions and explain things in such a better way that actors just can it's not possible unless there's a narrator narrating their thoughts and feelings, right? So that's why books will always be superior, because it's just, you just have a relationship with the characters and the story on a way more intimate level than any actor can ever portray the feelings that are being described in a book, if that makes any sense, right? So yeah, Game of Thrones, first 3 seasons are good, and then 4 it just kind of starts going off a cliff, and then it just becomes all woke agenda, and But there is a guy who's making an AI version of Game of Thrones, and he's completely saved the series. He's taken all the stuff that they did wrong, and he's making he's got like 3 episodes out of AI generated Game of Thrones. Fix the whole story. I'm shocked at what this guy did, that this team of guys did. They completely fixed Game of Thrones with AI, and they're retelling the story. If you guys are interested in that, I can send you the link to that. The guy's a genius. So, King's King. I gotta check out that 1961 movie, King of Kings. Yeah, I'll check that out. Ben-Hur's another great story. Yeah, I'd like to finish the Indiana Jones. I'd like to do a Matrix, Indiana Jones 3, the Raiders of not Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Last Crusade. That is the best one, because I mean Uncle A's in it. All the communist symbols that they've hidden in the movie that no one would pick up on unless you're like a hardcore commie. The whole storyline, oh my god, I would love to rip apart Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It is the most nonsensical of the Indiana Jones. It's a total Freemason Gnostic, like, again, the good guys are Freemason Gnostic Kabbalist pedophiles. And the whole movie is just designed to make you hate Uncle A. Meanwhile, Indiana Jones is the real psychopath serial killer. Oh man, I'd love to rip apart that movie. Matrix 2, though. The Matrix is another really, really good Gnostic one. I'd like to do one on Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings is a great way to tell the Gnostic story, but it's still a very, like, Tolkien's was a genius, and he left such an amazing legacy for us, and even though the story is pure Gnostic, it's such a beautiful, well done, and well written story. I mean, Gnosticism still makes for a great story. Just don't say it's the Bible, right? Like, when you just have one God in creation, it's not the same as this dualism where there's a chance that evil might conquer good, or, you know, it's not guaranteed that good is going to win. But with God, you know, God's going to win. It's not, you know, so it's kind of, in a sense, a good thing. Man is, like, the Bible says that God has put the world in man's heart so that they shall not know his ways. You know, God is the one who sends mankind strong delusions, as we read. You know, and without that delusion, and without, like, this evil, like, you need this discord to tell good stories. It's just like, you can't tune a piano perfectly. If you tune a piano perfectly, the notes don't sound right. You have to slightly tune every note imperfect a little bit, and then that imperfection is what allows you to hit the octave. And it's through that imperfection that musical notes sound good, and I find that the world depends on this imperfection. And that's where lies telling a good story. So Lord of the Rings would be a great one, because I could literally tell the Gnostic version of the Bible through Lord of the Rings. But, well, you know, I'm not against Lord of the Rings. I think it's a phenomenal story. I just think that you need to know when to divide Gnosticism and go, okay, well, this is a Gnostic, this story is clearly a Gnostic story. Just don't mix it with the Bible. Keep that stuff over here and keep the Bible over there. So I think Lord of the Rings would be a really good one. All right, guys, I'm going to bed. It's almost 3 hours long. So I hope you guys learned something. And there's no tipping. The PayPal's disconnected, so anyone who's asking for how to donate, you can't anymore. So all I think I have now is Bitcoin stuff, but you guys don't have to donate or anything. I'm working right now actually my work's going to pick up quite a lot in the new year, I think. So hopefully I can still do this. Anyways, guys, if you have any questions, I guess just leave them in YouTube or try to message me on Telegram. Join the Telegram group. I think it's in the link's in the description, and you guys can just message me there or yeah, message in the group or whatever, or find me there. All right, guys, so you guys have a good day. I'm going to bed, and yeah, I wish you guys all the best, and I hope you guys are well. Have a happy new year, and try not to party too hard, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week, hopefully.